Welcome to the deep dive. Ever wonder what's really going on when you're asleep? And maybe more importantly, how you can actually get better at it?
It's a great question.
Today, we're plunging into the fascinating science of sleep. We're drawing insights from the YouTube video, The Ultimate Guide to 10x Better Sleep tonight, which itself is inspired by Matthew Walker's fantastic book, Why We Sleep.
Yeah, both are excellent resources.
Think of this as your fast track to understanding the surprisingly active world of your nightly rest.
It's funny, isn't it? We often treat sleep like just hitting pause on the day.
Right, just downtime.
But what the science really underscores, and what these sources highlight, is that it's anything but passive. Sleep is probably the most powerful tool we have for recalibrating our minds and bodies every single day.
It's nature's reset button.
Pretty much. It's the elegant solution for, well, staying functional, really.
Exactly. And this isn't just some abstract scientific concept. It directly impacts you listening right now. We're not just talking about feeling a bit less tired.
No, it goes way beyond that.
Quality sleep is fundamental. It's the bedrock for your daily energy, your ability to focus, even your long-term health and how long you might live.
Truly understanding sleep, it's almost like unlocking a cheat code for feeling and performing at your best.
And think about it, we spend roughly a third of our lives asleep.
It's a huge chunk of time.
So figuring out what happens during those hours and how to maybe optimize them could have a massive ripple effect on the other two-thirds, right?
Absolutely. The waking hours depend heavily on the sleeping ones.
So our mission today is pretty straightforward, but hopefully quite powerful. Dive into this material, pull out the most crucial, maybe even surprising insights about sleep.
Yeah, get to the core of it.
We want to give you a really clear picture of what's happening behind your eyelids each night and, crucially, equip you with some actionable steps you can use literally tonight to sleep better.
Sounds good. Where should we start?
Okay, let's unpack the basics. Let's talk about the sleep cycle. Think of it as your brain and body's nightly adventure, maybe in like 4x.
It really is a journey. Falling asleep isn't like flipping a switch, you know?
Hmm.
It's this carefully orchestrated sequence of stages. Each one has its own vital job to do for restoration.
Right. So Act 1, Stage 1, this is that gentle drift into slumber. It's short, usually less than 10 minutes. You're just kind of teetering on the edge of wakefulness.
Yeah, easily woken up at this point.
Then we move into Stage 2, sometimes called the Fortress of Silence. Here, things really start to settle down. Your body temp dips, muscles relax, heart rate, breathing. It all slows.
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting is even as the overall brain activity decreases, you get these brief bursts, sleep spindles, and K complexes. What are those about?
Ah, yes. These aren't just random brain static. Think of sleep spindles as your brain actively trying to sort of gate out external noise. It helps protect your sleep.
So like a built-in noise filter.
Kind of, yeah. And K complexes. They seem to be involved in memory consolidation, like hitting the save button on things you learned during the day. And interestingly, people who naturally have more spindles tend to be harder to wake up with noise.
Fascinating. Okay, so from Stage 2, we go deeper. Stages 3 and 4, deep sleep.
Now we're talking about the real powerhouse stage. This is where the heavy lifting happens. Brain waves slow right down these big, slow delta waves.
And this is prime time for physical restoration.
Exactly. Body tissues get repaired, the immune system does its maintenance, energy stores are replenished, and crucially, growth hormones are released. This is vital stuff.
And if someone wakes you up from this stage, you feel awful, right? That grogginess.
Oh yeah, that's sleep inertia. It
Well,
hits
then-
hard if you're pulled out of deep sleep.
Yeah.
And consistently missing out on enough deep sleep, that has real consequences.
Like what?
Well, you'll likely feel physically tired all the time. Your immune system weakens, making you more susceptible to getting sick, and your thinking just won't be as sharp.
Okay. Then after duck sleep, we cycle back up through Stage 2 and arrive at the final act. REM sleep, the theater of dreams.
This is where things get really active again, mentally speaking. Brain activity shoots back up, almost like when you're awake.
And this is where most vivid dreaming happens, those really bizarre ones sometimes.
That's the one. Your eyes move rapidly back and forth under your eyelids. Rapid eye movement, hence RM. And interestingly, your body enters a state of temporary muscle paralysis.
Why paralysis?
It's thought to be a safety mechanism. Basically, it stops you from physically acting out your dreams, which could obviously be dangerous.
Makes sense. You mentioned brain activity is high, almost like being awake.
In some ways, even more active. Specific areas dealing with vision, movement, memory, emotions can be up to 30% more active than during wakefulness.
Wow.
But here's the twist. The prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic and rational thought, actually becomes less active.
Ah, so that might explain why dreams can be so weird and emotional without the logic police stepping in.
Precisely. The rational brain kind of takes a backseat, letting the emotional and creative parts run wild.
Okay, so these four stages, 1, 2, deep sleep, 3 and 4, and REM make up one cycle.
Yep, and that whole cycle repeats roughly every 90 minutes throughout the night.
And here's a key point you mentioned earlier, the balance shifts throughout the night.
Exactly. Early in the night, you spend more time in that restorative deep sleep. As the night progresses towards morning, the REM periods get longer and more frequent.
Which means cutting your sleep short, even by an hour or two, can have a disproportionate effect.
A huge effect, especially on REM sleep. The source material highlights this starkly. Going from, say, 8 hours to just 6 hours of sleep might cut your total REM sleep by as much as 70%.
70%, that's massive.
It is. And considering REM is vital for things like concentration, regulating emotions, managing stress, creativity, problem solving, consistently shortchanging yourself on sleep, especially REM, really impacts your day-to-day function.
So the big takeaway here is that sleep isn't just off. It's this active, complex, incredibly important process. Understanding the cycle helps appreciate what's happening.
Absolutely. It's vital work.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. What actually drives us to sleep and wake up? Let's talk about those underlying rhythms, the internal clock, and this thing called sleep pressure.
Right. These are the two main players governing our sleep-wake patterns. First, you've got your internal 24-hour clock, the circadian rhythm, and second, this chemical, adenosine, that builds up while we're awake.
Okay, circadian rhythm, that's like the body's master clock, right? Controlling more than just sleep.
Oh, definitely. It's a roughly 24-hour cycle, orchestrating loads of things: mood, appetite, body temperature, hormone release, including melatonin, even things like when you might perform best athletically.
And where is this clock located?
It's in a tiny region of the brain, in the hypothalamus, called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN for short. It's the conductor of the orchestra.
And how does it know what time it is? How does it stay synchronized?
Great question. It's actually not perfectly 24 hours on its own for most people. It runs a bit longer, maybe 24 hours and 15 minutes. The main way it gets reset or entrained to a precise 24-hour day is light.
Daylight.
Exactly. Natural daylight hitting the eyes is the most powerful cue for the SCN. It calibrates the clock each morning. But other things help too: regular meal times, exercise routines, social interaction. Consistency helps keep it tuned.
And this SCN is linked to melatonin, the sleep hormone.
Intimately linked.
Yeah.
The SCN signals the pineal gland to start producing melatonin as daylight fades. Melatonin then signals to the body, okay, time to prepare for sleep.
So it's more like a dimmer switch than an on-off switch.
That's a good way to put it. It doesn't knock you out instantly, but it facilitates the transition to sleep. Melatonin production peaks in the wee hours, then drops off as morning light appears.
And we're not all the same with this clock, right? The whole lark versus owl thing.
Absolutely not. There are real genetic differences. Morning larks naturally wake early and have energy peaks in the morning. Night owls feel better and are more productive later in the day and evening.
And society isn't always kind to night owls?
Unfortunately, no. Standard 9-to-5 schedules often put night owls at a disadvantage. They might be seen as lazy when it's really just their biology operating on a different timeline.
Okay, so that's the circadian rhythm, the timing signal. What about the other force, adenosine?
Right. Adenosine is a chemical that builds up in your brain throughout your waking hours. Think of it like sand filling an hourglass.
So the longer you're awake, the more adenosine accumulates?
Precisely. And the more adenosine builds up, the stronger the sleep pressure becomes, that feeling of needing to sleep.
And sleep clears it away.
Yes. During sleep, the brain clears out this adenosine. After about 8 hours of good sleep, that pressure is typically relieved, resetting the hourglass for the next day.
Okay. So where does caffeine fit into this picture? Because it definitely fights sleepiness.
Ah, caffeine. It's a clever trickster. Caffeine works by blocking the adenosine receptors in your brain.
So it stops the adenosine from signaling sleepiness?
Exactly. It doesn't actually reduce the amount of adenosine that keeps building up,
Yeah.
but it prevents your brain from detecting it for a while. It masks the sleep pressure.
Which can lead to problems.
Definitely. You can get into a dependency cycle, needing more caffeine to fight the accumulating sleep debt. And crucially, caffeine has a long half-life.
How long?
About 5 to 7 hours for half of it to be eliminated. So that afternoon coffee can still be significantly blocking adenosine receptors when you're trying to fall asleep later that night.
Yikes. Good to know. So it's this interplay, this dance between the circadian rhythm telling you when it's time to sleep and the adenosine building up the pressure to sleep.
Perfectly put. They work together. Understanding this balance and how things like light and caffeine affect it is really key to managing your sleep effectively.
Right. Okay, before we get into the why sleep matters part, can we quickly touch on the brain regions involved?
Huh.
You mentioned the SCN, the pineal gland. What else is running the show?
Sure. We have the conductor, the SEN in the hypothalamus, and the pineal gland producing melatonin.
Got it.
Then there's the thalamus. Think of it as a sensory relay station or gatekeeper. During most sleep stages, it quiets down, helping block out external sensory input.
But not during REM.
Right. During REM, it becomes highly active again, sending the sensory signals, sights, sounds to the cortex that form our dreams.
And the hypothalamus itself, besides housing the SCN.
It's a major hub with different groups of neurons controlling both sleep and arousal. Super important.
Okay. What about the brainstem?
Key structures there too. The pons is crucial for generating REM sleep and helps regulate basic functions like breathing during sleep. Below that, the medulla controls other autonomic functions like heart rate and blood pressure while we're asleep.
And one more, the basal forebrain.
Yes, that area helps promote both sleep and wakefulness. And interestingly, adenosine seems to exert its sleep-promoting effect partly by acting on neurons there.
Wow, okay. It's a complex network.
It really is a sophisticated piece of biological machinery.
All right, so we've seen the cycle, the rhythms, the brain parts. Now, the big question, why does all this matter so much? Let's get into the incredible benefits of getting enough good sleep.
This is where it gets really compelling. As the old saying goes, sleep is the golden chain that ties health and our bodies together. And science keeps proving that more and more, especially for our brains and memory.
Absolutely. Sleep is like a superpower for memory, isn't it? It helps in a couple of ways.
Two main ways, yes. First, it prepares your brain before learning, making it ready to absorb new information, effectively like clearing the inbox.
Yeah.
And second, after learning, it consolidates those memories, making them stick, locking them in for the long term.
I like the analogy used in the source. The hippocampus is like a temporary storage, a USB stick maybe, and the cortex is the hard drive.
That's a great analogy. During non-REM sleep, particularly deep sleep, those fragile short-term memories in the hippocampus get transferred and integrated into the vast network of the cortex for more permanent storage.
So it clears space on the USB stick for new learning the next day.
Exactly. And it preserves the important stuff long-term.
And this isn't just for facts and figures, right? What about skills? Like learning guitar.
Motor skills, too. Sleep strengthens what people call muscle memory, although the learning really happens in the brain, not the muscles. Practice a skill, sleep on it, and you'll often find you're better the next day. The brain rehearses and refines those motor patterns during sleep.
That's cool. What about creativity?
Sleep, especially REM sleep, seems to be a hotbed for creativity. It helps the brain make connections between seemingly unrelated ideas and experiences.
How does it do that?
It's thought that during REM, the brain does this kind of informational alchemy, linking different memories and concepts in novel ways. This can lead to new insights, solving problems creatively. That aha moment sometimes comes after a good night's sleep.
Okay, memory, skills, creativity. What about just basic focus and concentration?
Oh, sleep deprivation absolutely tanks cognitive performance. Lack of sleep severely impairs your attention, your focus, your decision-making.
How bad can it get?
Research shows that after about 19 hours awake, your cognitive impairment can be similar to someone who is legally drunk.
Wow. Seriously.
Seriously.
Mm.
And think about microsleeps, those tiny involuntary moments of unconsciousness.
Yeah.
When you're really tired, these can happen without you even realizing. And they're incredibly dangerous, especially when driving. Fatigue contributes to more road accidents in the U.S. than alcohol and drugs combined.
That's staggering. And we probably don't even realize how impaired we are.
That's the scary part. We're very bad judges of our own sleep deprivation levels.
Okay, cognitive function is hit hard. What about emotions? Does lack of sleep make us grumpy?
It definitely does more than just make us grumpy. It messes with the balance between the amygdala, the brain's emotional reactivity center, and the prefrontal cortex, the rational control center.
So the emotions run wilder and the logic is weaker.
Pretty much. You become more emotionally volatile, prone to mood swings, maybe you make riskier decisions because that rational oversight is diminished.
And long-term brain health. Are there lasting effects?
Yes, the evidence is mounting. Chronic sleep deprivation might actually harm DNA and genes involved in learning. And there's a strong link emerging between poor sleep over the long haul and neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's.
Why Alzheimer's?
Well, one theory is that sleep, particularly deep sleep, is crucial for clearing out metabolic waste products from the brain, including amyloid plaques associated with Alzheimer's. Less sleep means less effective cleanup.
Okay, so the brain takes a massive hit from sleep deprivation. What about the rest of the body?
The impact is system-wide. Let's start with the heart.
Cardiovascular health.
Big connection. Poor sleep significantly increases the risk of heart disease. Adults over 45 getting consistently short sleep have a much higher risk of coronary heart disease or dying from it.
How much higher?
One statistic mentioned is a 45% increase in sleeping less than 6 hours a night. That's linked to a 200% increase in the likelihood of having a heart attack or stroke compared to those getting sufficient sleep.
200%. What's the mechanism there?
It seems linked to an overactive sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight system. Sleep deprivation keeps it dialed up, leading to higher heart rate, blood pressure, and stress hormones like cortisol.
Whereas deep sleep normally gives the heart a break.
Exactly. During deep sleep, heart rate and blood pressure drop, allowing the cardiovascular system to rest and recover. Lack of sleep denies it that crucial downtime.
Okay, heart health is critical. What about metabolism? Weight gain? Diabetes?
Also strongly affected. Sleep loss disrupts hormones that regulate hunger and fullness, ghrelin and leptin.
Making you hungrier and less satisfied.
Yep, leading to overeating and weight gain. Plus, it impairs your body's ability to handle glucose. Just 1 week of sleeping only 4 or 5 hours a night can make your cells less sensitive to insulin, basically pre-diabetic levels of insulin resistance.
That's incredibly fast.
It shows how quickly things can go downhill metabolically.
Reproductive health. Is that impacted too?
Yes. In men, sleep deprivation significantly lowers testosterone levels. One study equated the drop from chronic poor sleep to aging 10 or 15 years.
Wow. And for women?
Linked to fertility issues. It can reduce levels of follicular-releasing hormone, important for ovulation, and potentially increase the risk of miscarriage.
Okay, heart, metabolism, reproduction. What about immunity? Getting sick more often?
Definitely. Lack of sleep suppresses your immune system. It reduces the number and effectiveness of natural killer cells, key cells that fight off infections, and even cancer cells.
So you're more vulnerable.
Much more. Even minor sleep loss dampens the immune response. And chronic insufficient sleep. That's linked to a higher risk of developing certain cancers. One figure suggests a 40% increased risk compared to those getting 7+ hours.
This is sounding pretty bad across the board.
It really is. And it even goes down to the genetic level.
How so?
Insufficient sleep actually alters the activity, the expression, of hundreds of your genes. It tends to increase the activity of genes linked to inflammation, stress, cardiovascular problems,
And decrease the good ones.
and decrease the activity of genes involved in stable metabolism and immune function. So it's a double whammy at the very foundation of your biology.
So the overall message seems unavoidable. Skimping on sleep damages basically every system in your body.
That's the conclusion from the science. As Matthew Walker puts it quite starkly, the shorter you sleep, the shorter your life.
Okay, heavy stuff. Let's shift focus slightly now into the world of dreams. We touched on REM sleep, but what does science actually know about why we dream?
It's still a bit of a mystery, but we have some compelling theories. As we said, REM sleep is dream time, characterized by that high, almost awake-like brain activity.
With certain areas being more active.
Right. Visual areas, motor cortex, hippocampus, emotional centers like the amygdala, they can be buzzing. But the logical prefrontal cortex, quieter.
Hence the weirdness.
Hence the weirdness and the strong emotions.
So what are dreams potentially for? One idea is emotional processing, like therapy.
That's a leading theory, overnight therapy. The idea is that REM sleep provides a safe space to process emotionally charged memories from the day. Crucially, during REM, the brain has very low levels of norepinephrine, a key stress chemical. So you might be replaying emotional events, but in a neurochemically calm environment. This might help strip the emotional charge away, allowing you to integrate the memory without the intense feeling attached.
So processing difficult stuff without the stress response?
Potentially, yes, helping us cope and regulate emotions over time.
Interesting. Any other functions? What about social skills?
There's evidence linking REM sleep to our ability to accurately read social cues, especially facial expressions.
How does that work?
It seems REM helps calibrate our sensitivity to subtle emotional signals from others. When people are deprived of REM sleep, they sometimes become worse at interpreting faces. They might misread a neutral expression as threatening, for example.
So REM helps keep our social radar tuned.
That seems to be part of it. So dreams aren't just random noise. Current thinking suggests they have roles in memory, emotional health, creativity, social cognition, and we're still learning more.
Fascinating. But sleep doesn't always go smoothly. What happens when things go wrong? Let's briefly touch on some sleep disorders.
Right. Things can definitely go awry. Somnambulism or sleepwalking is one.
That happens during deep sleep.
Actually, usually during the lighter stages of non-REM sleep. It's more common in kids, and most grow out of it. It involves unconscious movement, sometimes complex actions.
Okay. Then there's a big one, insomnia.
Very common. Difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep, or just feeling unrested despite having the chance to sleep. Often triggered or worsened by stress, anxiety, that overactive sympathetic nervous system again.
Does it affect sleep stages?
Yes, people with insomnia often get less deep sleep and have more fragmented REM sleep.
Narcolepsy is another one. That sounds quite different.
Very different. It's a neurological disorder affecting the brain's control over sleep and wakefulness. Hallmark symptoms are extreme daytime sleepiness, sudden sleep attacks.
And cataplexy.
Yes, that sudden loss of muscle tone triggered by strong emotions, often laughter. Plus, sleep paralysis. It's often linked to a loss of brain cells that produce orexin, a key chemical for wakefulness.
And there's a really rare, scary one mentioned, fatal familial insomnia.
Extremely rare, thankfully. It's a genetic prion disease causing a progressive, total inability to sleep. It leads to rapid physical and mental decline and is, tragically, fatal within months.
Just underscores how essential sleep is.
Absolutely. And animal studies on total sleep deprivation show devastating results. Immune system collapse leading to septicemia, inability to regulate body temperature, organ damage. It's fundamentally necessary for life.
Okay. We've covered a lot of ground, the mechanics, the benefits, the problems. Now, let's pivot to the practical. What can people listening do tonight to sleep better? Let's get into those optimization strategies.
Right. The source material helpfully breaks this down into key areas. Let's start with diet and substances. What you eat and drink matters.
First rule seems to be avoid big meals and lots of fluids too close to bed.
Yes. Heavy digestion can be disruptive, uncomfortable. The video uses the analogy of digestion and metabolism being like factories that need time to wind down before sleep.
Lying down after a big meal isn't great anyway.
No. And drinking a lot means you'll likely be waking up to use the bathroom, fragmenting your sleep. The general advice is limit fluids maybe 2-3 hours before bed.
Okay. Substances. We already talked caffeine. The advice is avoid it for at least 8 hours before bed, maybe even longer.
Ideally, yes. Remember that 5-7 hour half-life. To be safe, many people, like the video creator, try to cut off caffeine by late morning, say 11 a.m.
What about nicotine?
Nicotine is a stimulant. It leads to lighter, more fragmented sleep, less deep in REM. Definitely interferes.
And alcohol. It makes some people feel sleepy initially.
It's deceptive. Alcohol is a sedative, so it might help you fall asleep faster. But it severely disrupts your sleep architecture later in the night.
Ow!
It significantly reduces deep sleep and is particularly potent at suppressing REM sleep. Even just a couple of drinks can wreck your REM, which you can often see on sleep trackers.
So bad news for nightcaps if you want quality sleep.
Pretty much. And the source also notes concerns about maternal alcohol use affecting newborn REM sleep, which is critical for development.
Okay, so watch the food, fluids, caffeine, nicotine, alcohol before bed. What about timing?
Consistency is king here. Go to bed and wake up around the same time every single day.
Yeah.
Even on weekends, as much as possible.
Why is that so important?
It anchors your circadian rhythm. It helps regulate melatonin release and all the other timed bodily processes.
Yeah.
Irregular schedules confuse your internal clock.
Makes sense. What about naps? Good or bad?
Naps can be good, but timing is crucial again. Avoid napping after about 3 p.m.
Because it reduces sleep pressure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A late nap can make it harder to fall asleep at your regular bedtime because you've bled off some of that adenosine buildup.
Got it. Next category, light. This seems huge.
Absolutely critical. Two sides to this. Getting light at the right time and avoiding it at the wrong time.
Right time is morning.
Yes. Morning sunlight, ideally within the first hour of waking, is powerful for setting your circadian clock. It suppresses melatonin, boosts alertness, and helps ensure melatonin comes back on time in the evening.
So open the curtains, get outside if possible.
Definitely. Even on a cloudy day, outdoor light is much brighter than indoor light.
And the wrong time for light is evening, especially blue light.
Exactly. Artificial blue light from phones, tablets, laptops, TVs. Especially after sunset, it tricks your brain. It basically signals daytime and shuts down melatonin production just when you need it to rise.
And screen light is different from sunlight.
It's often a more concentrated, sharp frequency, and we hold screens close to our eyes, magnifying the effect.
So what can we do about blue light?
Several things. Use night shift or eye comfort modes on devices they warm the color temperature. Consider blue light blocking glasses, especially in the last couple of hours before bed.
Are some glasses better than others?
Yes, they vary in how much blue light they block. Some are light yellow, others quite orange or red for stronger blocking. But the simplest thing, minimize screen time altogether in the hour or two before bed.
Okay, good advice. Let's talk environment. The bedroom itself.
Treat it like a sanctuary for sleep. The main idea is to create a strong mental association between your bedroom and rest. So ideally, use it only for sleep and intimacy.
Avoid working in bed, watching TV, scrolling.
Right. Don't make it a multi-purpose room if you can help it.
Darkness is key too.
Paramount. Make it as dark as absolutely possible. Blackout curtains, sleep mask. Cover any little LED lights. Darkness signals melatonin release.
Comfort matters too, obviously. Mattress, pillow.
Of course. Make sure they're comfortable and supportive for you. Weighted blankets are also mentioned. Some people find the gentle pressure very calming and helpful for sleep. Research is ongoing, but the calming effect seems real for many.
And temperature. Cooler is better.
Generally, yes. The optimal range is often cited around 18.3 degrees Celsius or 65 Fahrenheit. A cool room helps your body temperature drop, which facilitates sleep. Temperature-controlled mattresses are even an option now for personalized cooling or heating.
Okay, final category. Your habits and routines. Exercise.
Beneficial, definitely. Aim for at least 30 minutes most days. But timing matters. Again, avoid really strenuous exercise within 2-3 hours of bedtime, as it can be too stimulating.
Makes sense. And having a wind-down routine.
Highly recommended. Create a relaxing ritual before bed. Reading a physical book, a warm bath or shower. The cooling down afterwards helps signal sleep. Gentle stretching, meditation. Critically, keep screens out of this routine.
What if you just lie there, unable to sleep?
Good question. The advice is, don't just stay there tossing and turning and getting frustrated. If you're not asleep after about 20 minutes, get out of bed.
Yeah.
Go somewhere else, do something quiet and relaxing in dim light, read a bit, listen to calm music until you feel genuinely sleepy again, then go back to bed. Break the association between bed and frustration. And one final tool, sleep tracking.
Right. Devices like Fitbit, Whoop, Aura Ring, Apple Watch. They can give you data on your sleep duration, stages, quality. It's not perfect science, but it can help you see patterns and understand how different habits might be affecting your rest.
Making the invisible visible, essentially.
Exactly. Okay, so bringing this all together as we wrap up.
It's been a deep dive for sure.
We've covered the sleep stages, the rhythms, the brain science, the huge benefits, the serious downsides of deprivation, the world of dreams, sleep disorders, and importantly, a whole toolkit of practical ways to improve sleep starting tonight.
Hopefully, everyone listening now has a much richer understanding of this fundamental part of life.
We really encourage you, experiment with some of these strategies. You don't have to do everything at once. Pick one or two.
Even small, consistent changes can make a really noticeable difference in how you feel and function day to day.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought to leave you with.
Go for it.
Given that we spend about a third of our entire lives asleep, think about how much more we could potentially achieve, experience, and enjoy in our waking hours if we truly mastered the art and science of sleep.
What could you unlock if you consistently prioritized it?
Exactly. What potential might you unlock? It's definitely something worth pondering, maybe even sleeping on.
Nicely put.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into sleep.